We are back for more. It is the third edition of the Rewind Roundtable. Leafs, Red Wings, Norris Division semifinals 1993. The series is tied up 2-2, and as we head into Game 5, we've got the crew to break it down. The voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Joe Bowen, team reporter for your Toronto Maple Leafs, Paul Hendrick, and a very special guest, the man who scored the iconic OT winner in Game 5, Mike Foligno. How are you?
Very well, Danielle. How are you doing?
We're doing well, considering the circumstances. I know this has been a very unique and challenging time for everybody. So how have you been holding up?
You know what? It's been interesting. Obviously, I'm sure it's different for everyone's situation. I'm back in Sudbury right now. My family is all in the States. So all my 4 kids and their families are all living in the United States. So with the border closed, you get a little apprehensive. But we're getting through okay. We're trying to stay in touch with each other almost on a daily basis through, just video or chats and stuff. So just trying to catch up and stay up to what their daily goings on are and seeing their faces. I really think that they enjoy sports in general. And when we lived in Hershey, there wasn't really a whole lot of girls hockey being played in the Hershey area at the time.
And Mike, as great athletes as your 2 boys are, might the girls be even better when you look back in their illustrious lacrosse careers in the greater Buffalo area?
Yeah, if you ask them, for sure they'll say yes, they were. I really think that they enjoy sports in general. And when we lived in Hershey, there wasn't really a whole lot of girls hockey being played in the Hershey area at the time. And they wanted to start up a team. So their school started this kind of a club team. The Hershey school started a club team. And they asked me to come out. So I'd run the practices. I'd run over to my practices. And right after my practices, we'd run across the driveway into the old barn. And we'd probably go practice rink. And the girls would be on the ice already. We'd jump on and help them out. And now it's nice to hear, but they have established a ladies league in Hershey, so it's really nice. It's come a long way, but I credit the girls for starting ladies hockey in Hershey.
Michael, this series we've been talking with Wendell and Bob McGill up to this point. The first 2 games were an embarrassment. You got your doors blown off in both games in Detroit. They were physical affairs. They were nasty at times, but the Red Wings had scored 12 goals. You come back and play much better in Game 3, and then squeak one out in Game 4. So as you go back for Game 5, you're going back to the Joe, which is a tough place to play, especially with that team led by Steve Yzerman and with the physical players like Probert and company. What was it like playing in that building, and what was the mindset after you'd gotten the series back even at Game 15?
Well, I think, we had momentum with us at that time. When we knew we had momentum with us, there was a complete about-face after Game 2. It started with, Cliff Fletcher meeting with the whole team and kind of resetting our focus. And I don't know if anyone's mentioned that already, but when Cliff did meet with us, it was a real, it was a late in the day kind of meeting, and it was not right near the dressing room. It was in a different room. And just a calmness came over almost everybody because of his tone of voice and especially what he said. Really what he said was, we have to change our mentality. And we have to change our focus, because right now we're worried about, a player. We're worried about like Dino Ciccarelli in front of the net. We're worried about or thinking about and focusing on some of their players instead of thinking about what we have to do, thinking about our team and what we're trying to do and score goals and play our game. So it was an amazing feeling in that meeting, because you could sense everybody kind of like taking a deep breath of fresh air and saying, yeah, he's right. Like we're going about this all wrong. And so from that moment on, our whole focus changed. And then we knew after winning Game 3 and 4 that going back into their rink, it was going to be such a crucial game. We heard all kinds of stuff about Game 5s, how important Game 5s are. And we really wanted to be for that game in that moment to be a turning point for that playoff round and for how we were playing and how we were going to continue to play.
Hey, that said, Mike, you come into the Joe with all sorts of momentum, but the start in the first period was anything but. It was almost a cautious approach, and I guess it kind of bit you in the backside, at least to start off.
Yeah, it was a crazy feeling because we had all intentions of knowing what we wanted to do, but I think we were so excited. We were so excited that we had something going, and momentum is an incredible word and an incredible it puts you in a state of mind. And we came out of Game 4 in Toronto, and the celebrations that were going on from our fans, they were so excited for us to be able to get back in the game. It almost felt like, and I live downtown, it almost felt like after every game that we won, it was a Stanley Cup parade happening the next day. And we got caught up in that a little bit. So I think the first start of that fifth game in the first period, we were kind of overexcited. We were, kind of putting the cart before the horse. And we stopped playing the way that we were playing to get the goals and really tight defensive hockey and really, playing our game again. We started really thinking about what they were going to come back with at us instead of how we were going to continue to play the way that we were playing.
Mike, you fall behind 4-1 6 minutes into the second period. I can't recall if Bernsey called a timeout or if it was just everybody reflecting on the bench that they had to get back into what you're saying, doing what they needed to do, get back to playing good defensive hockey in front of Felix. But it obviously turned around very quickly because they didn't score another goal.
In situations like that, you always have to say, what did the leaders do? How did the leaders respond? And if you look at our leaders on that team, Doug Gilmour never lost a step. He never lost his focus. He was gung-ho all the time, and he was going to be a difference maker. And, you have to get a couple breaks. You got our captain, Wendell Clark, who played like a man possessed again in that game and just started carrying the team on his shoulders. There's so many guys that contributed, but it has to start with your leaders. And Potvin goal was phenomenal. You think about Jamie McCowan. Jamie McCowan is a guy, not too many people talk about Jamie McCowan, but he was relentless, and everybody kind of jumped on board. And when we started getting the breaks and our big guys started, puck possession game again and driving the net hard, those breaks started to turn for us, and then we were able to start working our way back.
We were talking to Wendell, and he was saying how vital you were when it comes to leadership. Although you had to accept a new role with the Maple Leafs that season, chipping in where you could, he said that you really helped to keep the atmosphere light on the bench. Was that something that you really valued bringing to the team?
Well, I think, from experience, we know that there's so much pressures and stresses going on, and especially in the environment that we were in, and a player like Wendell, who's still a relatively young captain, and this was a cornerstone moment in time, I believe, for the franchise, and for him as a captain as well. And so it wasn't just myself that was kind of working with Wendell and was going to be able to play the kind of game and lead the way that he is capable of leading. You talk about Bob Rouse, you talk about Mike Krushelnyski, you talk about Glenn Anderson, Mark Osborne. There's so many other guys that helped along the way and contributed in their own ways. And, another great one that we just saw right there, Davey Ellett, very poised individual. But it starts way before all of that. And if I could just take you back a little bit, a lot of us at that moment lived downtown Toronto. And there was probably 10 guys that lived in the downtown area. And every night for the last month of the season, maybe even longer than that, we would go out together for dinner. And sometimes even the guys on the outskirts would hear about how much fun we had, and they'd want to join us. So next thing you know, we got about 14, 15 guys going out for dinner. Well, that continued into the playoffs. And we would all get together. We looked forward to being with each other. And I know that we didn't want this to end. We wanted it to continue on. And that leadership from the Wendell and Dougie and a lot of the other guys on our team, Bob Rouse, that contributed to us wanting to be in a situation where we're moving forward, enjoying each other's company, having fun. And this was all about having fun and enjoying the game.
At age 33, you're the oldest guy on the hockey team. I think Wanner might have been the closest. But after so much leadership in your years in Buffalo, how much of a transition was it for you in the role that Danielle just alluded to with this Maple Leaf team, given the leaders that were in that room already?
I think there was a lot of former captains in that dressing room. And, our focus was to try to unite as quickly as possible and really, just use all our experiences and to come together. And then I'll step outside of that, and I'll even talk about, how Pat Burns was such a great leader for us. He was the perfect coach for that kind of a team in those times. He demanded a lot, but he had a lot of respect for our players, and he gave us the room to grow and develop as a team. He kind of would tell us what to do, and then he'd give it to us and say, okay, now you guys do it. You guys do it the way you have to do it to make it happen. And then you got coaches like Mike Murphy, assistant coaches like Mike Murphy, just a real genuine individual, would take you aside, say a couple common words to you and refocus you and boom, throw you back in there. Then you had Mike Kitchen, who was probably the most excitable guy, energetic, and, just brought that energy, high energy to the game. It was so contagious, it rubbed off on all of us. So everybody kind of brought their best in those pressure times. And I think the captains that were former captains, contributed in their own little ways to helping, Wendell be the leader that he became. And like I said, it was a cornerstone moment for the franchise. And I think a lot of people remember those times because there was such a joy in the air, and there was such a commitment. There was such a fighting team that we had that, just didn't want to quit.
Michael, superstition is always a part of any athletic endeavor. I don't know if you had a lot of them, but I will recount this story, and maybe you can add to them. Pat Burns, for Game 5, when we got to Detroit, didn't want to go out to dinner because there were so many Leaf fans there over from Windsor. So he invited Harry Neal, who was doing color with Bob Cole, of course, to come up to his room, and they would have some cocktails. Well, a bottle of vodka was turned into martinis and down. And then, of course, you guys win Game 5, you lose Game 6. They come back for Game 7, and guess what has to happen? Back to the room they go. And then you play home to St. Louis, and you go to St. Louis. And what has to happen? Up to the room again they go for more cocktails. And Harry Neal said if you guys had got to the Stanley Cup final, it may have killed him, or he'd had to check into Petty Ford.
I didn't know that.
Were there any interesting idiosyncrasies or things like that with players that you do, and for you?
You know what? A lot of players had them. It was scary how many players have these little repetitious traits that they have to do before the game, and you see it a lot now. More so now when the camera's in the back rooms and the guys are getting ready to go on the ice and they're doing the helmet taps and the hugs and the high fives and all that. Ours was a little different. Ours was taking the same route to the game. Ours was I remember wearing an ugly orange yellow kind of turtleneck one game, and we won. The guys wouldn't let me come to the game without wearing that same orange turtleneck. And they said, but you can't wash it, because if you wash it, it's going to lose all its magic.
Oh, no.
I wore that game. I wore that turtleneck, I swear, for about 5 or 6 or 7 games. And then finally, after the 7th game, it stunk so bad I had to wash it. But I took all the magic out of it, so I couldn't wear it anymore.
Yeah, you're down 4-1, all looks lost. Then all of a sudden, a blue line that's known for its defensive capabilities strikes with a couple by Dave Ellett. You look at that blue line as a group, defensively, obviously, what they've been able to do. How underrated do you think they might have been, given the fact that maybe there wasn't a necessarily consensus number one D-man on that three-pairing group, but three real solid pairings that the coaches could go to, knowing that either three of those pairings could get the job done?
Yeah, I think we don't talk about our defense in those times as much as we probably should have. You got Bob Rouse, you got Dave Ellett, you got Davey McCowan, Sylvain Lefebvre, Todd Gill, Bob McGill. I mean, we got a mix of gritty, smart, hardworking, tireless players that would compete against anybody, anywhere, anytime, and that's what they brought. And they brought a consistency, to our team, and they brought an offensive flair as well. I remember Todd Gill, probably known more, for his physicality, but Todd brought the puck up the ice a number of times, and Davey Ellett joined, and you got Sylvain Lefebvre rushing the puck. But defensively around Potvin, we tried to be as stingy as possible, and they really did the job there. It worked out very well for the unit.
When Wendell Clark scored the tying goal to force overtime, what was the sense of jubilation just on the ice, on the bench? What was running through your mind when you guys knew that the game was in your hands?
I think everybody just knew that this was going to be our game. We were in their kitchen. The building started, getting really, really quiet, and that's pretty rare for Detroit. But when he scored that goal, it was a power play goal and just a great shot. And I think he was screened by maybe his own player, but we were jubilant, and we just had a sense of confidence that came back again. And we said, we're in the place that we need to be right now. We've been here before, and it seems like in that playoff year we were in it so many times in those special moments. But we knew that we were coming. Our team, was rising, and their team was dropping. What
can you tell us about Felix psychologically that allowed him to stay in control at the age of 21? He'd given up 12 in games 1 and 2, 4 more in this game right here. Things were not easy at Joe Louis Arena, yet he persevered, competed. Maybe expound on what we might not know about Felix Potvin.
Felix is a cool cat, he's one of those guys. I mean, if you have a cat and you stare at the cat long enough, you'll fall asleep. And that's what I think Felix does to the opponents. He's so calm and net. He just relaxes you. And I think that, what I really mostly remember about Felix is in practice, he would practice so hard. There were some days where I'd walk off the ice for practice, and he'd literally stay on until the last shooter would take his shots, whatever the shooter needed. And Rick Wamsley was the same way when he was there, but Darren Pupa. But Felix was exceptional in the sense that when he was on the ice, he competed so hard against you. And he would lose a pile of weight because he would sweat so much during the practices and games. And he'd come off looking like he lost 10 pounds. And he worked that hard. And I think the reason why he worked that hard is because it made the game even simpler for him. And he was such a calming effect for the whole team. And we knew he was ready because even though he's such a young guy, to take on that pressure and that responsibility, it's not easy for a young guy. But he handled it so well. And I think it's because he was so relaxed, and he allowed everybody around him to just say, okay, you don't have to worry about the guy in goal. Do your job, And when you think about a goalie, you want nothing more from a goalie than to have that feeling like he's going to do the job. Don't even worry about him. It's like when you look at a Patrick Roy in his heyday. Nobody ever questioned Patrick Roy in goal because you knew that he was going to be ready, sometimes even more so than 3/4 of your team.
Michael, walk us through the game-winning goal. It comes early in the overtime. What was it like in the dressing room? What was it like when you scored? And have you ever jumped any higher than this goal?
Well, let me set it up a little bit. I mean, Wendell was such a strong force, and we were in their zone, and they tried to come out with it when we got it back in, and we moved it around a little bit. I think we had them tired out a little bit, and there were some mental errors being made, and we got a couple of lucky breaks with a turnover at the blue line, and we kept the puck back in, and Wendell turns it up the ice, throws it into the middle, and Krushelnyski's right in front of the goalie. There's no way he would have been able to see the puck, let alone when I shot the puck. But it just seemed like it was just a great play. The little cutback by Wendell, forced everybody off of the coverage, and it was just a great play. And fortunately, it went right between his legs, and we ended up winning the game. But the reason for the jubilation, everybody might think it's from scoring a goal, but it is from scoring a goal, but it's also from what happened the year before when I broke my leg. There was a lot of doubt whether I was ever going to come back, and even for me, but the guy that believed in me the most was Chris Broadhurst, our trainer. And I got to tell you, Chris was the greatest trainer I think I've ever seen and had on any team. Real quality professional guy, and really caring. And he took it upon himself to come and pick me up every morning when I lived out in Mississauga. And he would take me to a swimming pool. By 7 o'clock, we're in the pool swimming, and he had me on this aqua belt, and I'd be jogging in the water. And we did this relentlessly for over a month and a half. And he picked me up every morning. And scoring that goal was the reason I maybe was meant to come back, and the reason why Chris Broadhurst spent that time with me. And I wanted to show my joy and excitement for all the people that worked with us that year to help us along, and for the coaching staff and management to still believe in you and not trade you away or not ask you to retire, but bring you back to give you a chance to play, but also maybe unknowingly to allow you the chance to score a goal like that. And that's why I did my jump.
Such a great story and a moment etched in every Leaf fan's mind. How old were your kids at the time? When were they able to appreciate that moment for you?
Yeah, some of the older ones, for sure. My two daughters and my son, Nick, remember it quite well. Marcus was probably a little too young. But, it was a great time and a great team and just a lot of fun in those times. And I think that, anytime you score a big goal, there's so many guys that scored other goals in that game. It seems like mine's remembered, obviously, because it's an overtime goal. It's a special goal. But, for me, it was the biggest goal that I ever scored in my life. Someone asked me, do you remember how you scored? And I said, I think I said, I don't even remember my name right now. I was so excited. but it was a lot of fun, and it helped us to move forward. And that was the big key for the team.
Is that helmet of yours in a garage somewhere, Mike?
Got a flower in it.
Don't move.
Oh, no.
Oh, this is great.
Oh, way to go, Henny. It's got a flower in it. Has to have a flower in it.
You want the blue one or what? What is this? Look at this. Still fits.
Kazoo.
Doesn't get any better than that. It still fits perfectly.
Oh, that's all.
Maybe it's salad instead of a flower. I don't know. It looked like a salad bowl at the best at times.
I just took it out of the kitchen, Joe. I just took it out of the kitchen.
Attaboy.
Mike, thank you so much for doing this, taking the time, reliving such an iconic moment in Maple Leafs history. Of course, tossing it around with Joe Bowen and Paul Hendrick. Joe, you were there for that call. We should have made you relive that moment. Do the call one more time.
Well, I'll tell you what. It was, and Mike alluded to it a little bit earlier. It really was a cornerstone. It was a cornerstone of this franchise. We had gone through the 80s and gone through the Ballard years, and there was no hope. They weren't going to spend the money. It was a complete circus going on, and you really didn't think anything. But this series, and then of course later when Nicky scores the goal to propel them into the next round, it proved that ownership was trying to put the best product it could on the ice, and that product was going to be supported by the best support staff and coaching staff that they could muster. Hasn't resulted in a Stanley Cup win yet, but that cornerstone, Michael, I think is still there.
I think you're right, Joe. I mean, you think about what happened earlier on in that year, about midway through the season. I don't know if you remember, but we had a dinner, and at the dinner, the ownership brought a lot of the retired players back, a lot of the veteran players back, and we got a chance to meet with them. You know, Bobby Bond, Johnny Bauer. It's not like we get to see those guys every day. And a lot of the new players that had come to the team, Cliff brought guys from all over the place, 10 at a time, and such big trades. A lot of guys didn't know the past. And if you don't know the past, you can't respect the past. And if you know the past, you get to respect the past, and you can build to the future. And so that was an important moment for our team to have that dinner. And Bobby Bond goes up and he's talking to the team, and he's showing, like, he's displaying his passion for playing for the team. And I think he even pulled down took his belt off and pulled down part of his pants to show us his tattoo. He's just that, passionate about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we met so many great people, so many great stories, that it allowed us to, it ignited a spark in all of us to energize us to move forward. And I think those moments, we kept thinking back to a lot of those guys, and how can we honor those guys? We can honor those guys by playing all out, giving everything we have, and even in the most difficult moments, stay focused and find a way to work through. And I think that part of that carried us.
That's so powerful. You're a true example of what a leader is, and we're really looking forward to watching Game 5 tonight, 8 o'clock on Sportsnet. So, Mike, thank you once again for your time.
Thank you all. It was always a pleasure. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Mike.
Join us Tuesday. We're going to be having Big Daddy Bob McGill join us once again. We're going to be doing our Rewind Roundtable Game 6. And of course, we'll have Joe Bowen and Paul Hendrick joining us as well. Thank you for joining, everyone, and we will see you next time.
Going for the net. The pass.